Welcome to Biblical Archaeology in 5. Today I want to chat about something that's been bothering me. This idea that when I refer to stories from the Bible, that there seems to be two schools of thought that are offended, if you will, by my use of the term stories. So for example, you'll have the one group who tend to not really believe the Bible anyway, but when they hear the word story, they think mythology. But then, on the other hand, you have those who are very pro-Bible, and when they hear the word story, they think tall tale. But neither one of these two extremes are correct. In fact, Yahweh gave us stories. He gave them to us on purpose. He created us. He knows how we think. He knows that stories resonate with us. And when He gave us stories, He knew, for example, that He couldn't just give us straight history. It wouldn't be readable. There's not enough paper in the whole world to fill out a record of everything that happens. It's impossible. And so He gives us stories that give us a spiritual truth, the gist of what happened, but with a purpose. And we can remember stories because they just touch us deeply. There's a lot more to that. But let me just take you in a direction that essentially uses a story to make a point. So when I say, hey, remember the story in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, where you have God creates the heavens and the earth is formless and void, it's dark, and there's water. It's not a pretty place. And then He causes the separation between water and land, right? You know that story. But then in verse 3, it says, let there be light. So God creates light, and it just is. It's not light that's associated with any sun, moon, stars. And I've discussed these stories, in previous videos. But what I want to do today, because these are not just stories, they're stories with a purpose. And when verse 3 says, let there be light, you can't read that without the context of verses 1 and 2. Because remember, what Moses is doing when he writes this is he's making an argument, a polemic against the gods of Egypt and their creation story. So they believed that there was limitless water, limitless darkness, and that in the water were sea monsters, snakes, and other, things that are scary and go bump in the night, etc. And so, when Yahweh says, let there be light, He's being the warrior God. What is He doing? He is defeating the Egyptian god of darkness. And He says, let there be light, and it dispels darkness. And it was good. And so, that's an example of a story. It's not a scientific story. What it is, it tells us that God purposefully created the light. And when He did so, He was wrestling, if you will, and prevails against the very gods of Egypt that His children found themselves in. So when you read those stories, don't read them as mythology. Don't read them as tall tales. It's a recitation of what really happened. And God gives it to us in such a way that He's teaching us a lesson, that He is the warrior God, that He is the one who defeats the Egyptian gods.